Picture this: you are a woman alone, fleeing across a desolate, wind-scoured plain. The dust chokes you, the sun beats down without mercy, and the only sound is the frantic pounding of your own heart. Behind you, the past is a relentless hunter, a man of power and poison who believes he owns you. Ahead of you, there is nothing but the cruel horizon. Your legs give out. You fall, gasping, at the foot of a rocky outcrop, your lungs on fire. And then, a shadow falls over you. You look up and see him. He is a mountain of a man, carved from oak and granite, his face a roadmap of hard miles and old pains. A long, white scar runs from his left ear to the corner of his mouth, pulling his lips into a permanent, mournful line. In his hand, a six-shooter, its dark eye pointed directly at your soul. This is it. The end of the line. But from the deepest well of your desperation, a single, wild plea escapes your lips. Your voice is a raw whisper, torn by the wind. Please, you beg, your eyes locking with his. Please don't shoot. I'll give strong sons if you spare me. The man's expression doesn't change, but something flickers in the depths of his storm-gray eyes. A ghost of a memory, a flicker of an ancient hurt. Slowly, deliberately, he lowers the barrel of his six-shooter. But his gaze remains locked on you, and the look in his eyes is not one of mercy, but of a profound and terrible question. His name was Silas, and the cabin he led her to was as solitary and weathered as he was. It clung to the side of a steep, pine-choked canyon, a lone sentinel against the world. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of wood smoke, leather, and loneliness. There was one chair, one cot, one tin plate. He had built his life for one, and now there were two. He gestured for her to sit by the cold hearth, his movements stiff and economical. He said nothing, offering her only a ladle of water from a wooden bucket. She drank, the cool liquid a balm to her scorched throat, her eyes never leaving him. Her name, she told him when she could finally speak, was Elara. She didn't offer any more, and he didn't ask. An unspoken pact of silence settled between them, as heavy and insulating as a winter snow. Days bled into a week. Elara moved through the small cabin with a quiet grace that belied the terror that had driven her there. She found a rhythm in the solitude. She learned to patch Silas's worn shirts with thread she unraveled from her own tattered dress. She discovered a small, neglected patch of earth behind the cabin and began to coax stubborn greens from the soil, her hands finding a forgotten solace in the dirt. She was not trying to earn her keep, she was trying to rebuild a piece of herself. Silas watched her from a distance. He would sit on the porch, sharpening a knife or cleaning his rifle, his presence a constant, brooding weight. He saw the way her hands, though trembling, were always busy. He saw the determined set of her jaw as she pulled weeds. He saw her staring out at the vast, empty expanse of the territory, her eyes holding a sorrow so deep he felt an echo of it in his own scarred heart. He was a man who had fled from feeling, who had built a fortress of silence to keep the ghosts of his past at bay. But this woman, with her quiet resilience and her desperate promise, was a crack in his wall. One evening, a small boy, no older than 10, with eyes too old for his face, appeared at the edge of the clearing. He was thin, dressed in rags, and clutched a dead rabbit by its legs. Silas simply nodded at him, taking the rabbit and handing the boy a small sack of flour in return. The boy, Sam, didn't speak, but his gaze fell upon Elara. She offered him a small, hesitant smile. The next time Sam came, Elara had baked a small, dense loaf of bread. She broke off a piece and held it out to him. The boy stared at her hand, then at Silas, who gave a nearly imperceptible nod. Sam snatched the bread and scurried back into the woods. It became their ritual. Elara's presence had softened the harsh edges of this silent transaction, turning it from a mere trade into something that resembled care. Silas saw it all. He saw the way her smile reached her eyes when the boy took the bread. He saw a maternal warmth that she likely didn't even know she possessed. That night, a storm broke over the canyon, the thunder rattling the very bones of the cabin. Elara cried out in her sleep, a strangled sob of pure fear. No, please, not him. Silas found himself standing over her makeshift bed on the floor, a blanket in his hands. He draped it over her, his rough fingers brushing her shoulder. She flinched, but didn't wake. The next morning, the air was clear and sharp. As they sat in their usual silence, Silas finally spoke, his voice rusty from disuse. "Who is he?" he asked, his gaze fixed on the horizon. Ilara's breath hitched. She looked at this broken man, this silent guardian, and the story poured out of her like a river breaking a dam. She spoke of Mayor Thompson, a man who had taken her in as a ward after her parents died, his charity a gilded cage. He was a man who owned the town, the law, and everyone in it. He had arranged a marriage for her, a political alliance to secure his dominion, treating her as nothing more than a deed to be signed over. When she refused, his kindness had curdled into a possessive rage. She had fled the night before the wedding, with nothing but the clothes on her back and the mayor's threats echoing in her ears. He would hunt her down, he had vowed, and drag her back to prove to the whole territory that what was his, stayed his. When she finished, a heavy silence fell once more. Silas stood up and walked to the door, looking out at the long track leading down the canyon. "He'll come," Silas said, his voice flat. "Men like that don't abide being defied." He turned to look at her, and for the first time, Ilara saw something other than pain in his eyes. It was resolve. Let him come. The peace was shattered a month later. It was Sam who brought the warning, his small face pale with fright. He had seen them at the base of the canyon, 3 riders, one of them large and important looking, wearing a fine coat despite the heat. Mayor Thompson had arrived. The sanctuary immediately became a fortress. Silas didn't panic. A lifetime of violence had taught him a cold, lethal calm. He barred the door and checked the loads in his rifle and his 6-shooter, his movements precise and deadly. He looked at Ilara, her face a mask of terror, her hands clenched into fists. "Stay away from the window," he commanded, his voice low. Then he glanced at the terrified boy cowering in the corner. "Sam, get in the root cellar. Don't make a sound." The boy scurried through the trapdoor in the floor, pulling it shut above him. The hoofbeats grew louder, stopping just outside the cabin. A booming voice, slick with false authority, cut through the air. "Ilara. I know you're in there. This foolishness has gone on long enough. I have a warrant from a federal judge. You will come out now." Silas stood beside the door, rifle held ready. "She ain't going anywhere," he called out, his voice a low growl. The mayor chuckled, a greasy, unpleasant sound. "And who is this? Some mountain savage who fancies himself her protector. Step aside, old man. This is a matter of law. She is my ward. My property." The word, property, hung in the air, vile and suffocating. It ignited something in Ilara. All the fear, all the running, coalesced into a single point of white-hot anger. She strode to the door, her eyes blazing. "I am not your property," she yelled, her voice ringing with a strength she didn't know she possessed. "I am not a thing to be owned." There was a moment of shocked silence, then the splintering crack of an axe hitting the door. Thompson was done with pretenses. "Tear it down," he roared. Silas shoved Ilara back. "Get down," he yelled, as he kicked a small table over for her to hide behind. The door shuddered again and again, the wood groaning. With a final, violent crack, it burst inward. Mayor Thompson stood framed in the doorway, his face purple with rage, flanked by 2 hired guns. "You've made a grave mistake," Thompson sneered, raising his pistol. But Silas was faster. His rifle roared, the sound deafening in the small space. One of the deputies cried out and fell backward. The second man fired, his bullet tearing a gash in Silas's arm. Silas grunted in pain but didn't falter, firing his 6-shooter now. The second man went down. Thompson, coward that he was, used the moment to dive for cover. He scrambled behind the doorframe, firing blindly into the cabin. A bullet ricocheted off the stone hearth, showering sparks. It was a stalemate. Silas was pinned down, bleeding. Thompson was protected, ready to wait him out. Then, from below the floorboards, came a muffled yell. Sam! In the chaos, the boy had lifted the trapdoor just a crack. He had seen Silas get hit. Acting on pure, terrified instinct, he shoved a small pile of dried kindling and a lit oil rag out from under the porch, right near the horse Thompson had left tied there. The terrified animal screamed as the flames licked its legs, rearing and snapping its reins. It galloped away in a panic, taking Thompson's only means of escape with it. The distraction was all Silas needed. He lunged from cover, not as a killer, but as a force of nature. He tackled Thompson, sending them both spilling out into the harsh sunlight. He wrested the gun from the mayor's hand and threw it into the dust. Silas stood over the sputtering, pathetic man, his chest heaving, his arm dripping blood onto the dry earth. He raised his fist, the raw, primal urge for vengeance surging through him. But then he saw Ilara in the doorway, her face streaked with soot and tears, but her eyes clear and steady. He saw the trapdoor, where a small, brave boy was peeking out. He lowered his hand. "Get up," Silas snarled, his voice trembling with contained fury. "You will walk out of this canyon. You will tell everyone you got lost. And if you ever come back here, the law you love so much won't find enough of you to bury." Thompson scrambled to his feet, his arrogance shattered, replaced by raw fear. He didn't need to be told twice. He fled on foot, stumbling down the path like the vermin he was. As the dust settled, the three of them stood in the ruined doorway of the cabin. Silas, his arm wrapped in a strip of cloth torn from Ilara's dress. Ilara, her body trembling with the aftermath of battle, but her spirit unbroken. And Sam, who slowly climbed out of the cellar, his eyes wide. Silas looked at Ilara, at the strength that had risen from her fear. He looked at Sam, the orphan boy who had shown the courage of a lion. He looked at the shattered door and the bullet-scarred walls, and he did not see a broken home. He saw the place where his life had started again. Ilara stepped forward and gently touched Silas's uninjured arm. Her eyes met his, and in their shared gaze, a new promise was made, one far more profound than the desperate words she had spoken in the dust. It was a promise of shared dawns, of rebuilding, of protecting this small, fierce family they had forged in fire and fear. The strong partners she would give were not just sons or daughters, but partners in survival, in hope, in creating a home where none had existed before. They were standing right here, together. So, what is a family, really? Is it born of blood, or is it forged in the heart of a crisis? Is a home the four walls that shelter you, or is it the people who stand with you when those walls come crashing down? We often believe our greatest strength lies in our independence, in our ability to stand alone against the world. But perhaps true strength is found when we have the courage to lower our own guns, to open a barred door, and to let someone else in. It's found in the moment we decide that another person's fight is our own. What walls have you built around your own heart, and who might you be keeping out? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Your stories and insights are what make this community so special. And as always, if this story moved you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more tales of courage, heart, and the enduring power of the human spirit.